Welcome everybody to another episode of the Weekly Tangent. We're here in studio, or in our office, I don't know. It's kind of like a studio.
It's kind of a studio because we're not actually in the regular office.
Right. We're not with the plebs.
So.
We actually have an area. This is not our office though, unfortunately. It would be nice to have a spot where we could keep everything and not have to worry about it and all that. So we did make it, and we got a couple things going on. I was talking to Brooks about, we were discussing like before stream with the GDC announcements and the PAX East announcements this week. A lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah, I mean, since last Thursday, so what there was, we were in Stadia happened, Sekiro happened, we got to the weekend, we got to this week, Division updated.
Yep.
We got further into this week, PAX East happened, like 5 Borderlands games were showed off or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, so. and not even a brand new one out of the 5. They finally got to the brand new one out of like the 6th one they showed, but they like to put that on everything.
Yep.
And they like to go back and remaster stuff. There was some kind of exciting news that like the Handsome Collection, you didn't have to buy it for a 10th time
to get all the 4K,
to get the UHD,
goodies,
4K, and all that. So that was kind of nice of Gearbox.
I think the Borderlands 1 is coming to all platforms. I think Borderlands 2 was going to Switch.
Yep.
Something was going to the Switch. Then they released a card game, like a physical card.
Yeah, you were talking about like the one that Tina, was that her name in the game?
Yeah, and
she played a Dungeons and Dragons game.
She was the dungeon master in one of the DLCs for 2, and now she's like went up
to the rank.
Bigger kid, I guess.
See, I always thought like she was an adult, but she was just crazy.
Okay.
I always kind of figured she was an adult, and like she was just nuts, and she was trying to play it off. I got a whole mess going on here right now. I was trying to actually fix our microphones so they're closer, so we don't sound like we're talking through tin cans.
Right.
But yeah, I always thought like she was an adult that was just like wacky, and like. She was, obviously the dungeon woman or dungeon master, and just, liked to make explosives. That's how I always took her.
That's interesting, yeah. I mean,
But you're thinking she's like 14 or something like that, like a kid.
Well, yeah, we're closer to adult than child now with this in the new universe.
With the new world, okay.
So...
Gotcha.
And then they showed off that trailer for 3, and it was kind of a who's who of everybody from all the games are back into 3, it looks like, at this point.
And they proved my point. No game on console runs at 60 FPS. They couldn't even pull 5 FPS.
They couldn't even get the trailer working.
I was watching some of the YouTube, or the Twitter comments, and Dan's Gaming over at Nerd Fusion, he was saying, I'm glad that they could only put it on a Windows Media Player to run. There were chants in the background. I don't know if you heard that. Play it on VLC or bring VLC or something.
Dude. When they were messing with the Windows
that was
Media
pathetic
stuff.
It's not like, I'm not sitting there going like I would do any better, but yeah, that was pretty bad.
No, I'll say that. I could have done better. I could have done better than that, yes.
But we would have watched the video at least first, right?
Once.
At least once beforehand, just to make sure. No, it was kind of funny to watch that. But it was exciting to see some Borderlands 3. It's been, how many years since prequel? 5? 6?
A very generous 4.
We could probably look that up. I have the game here. Let's see. So, Borderlands. Where'd it go? I think it's 6 years it was out. Oh, there it is. Birthday. 2014, so at least 5. Well, we're coming up on 5, so I don't know why. I thought it was like 6, but...
Okay, so then it must have been...
we were in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, so
we met in the middle.
Okay, yeah, but...
Yeah, no, it's been a while, and, it's kind of funny. DMC, right? It was about 5 years between DMC and DMC 5.
Yeah.
So we're having a flood of, like, new games coming out that are really, like, distant cousins of their previous version.
And what I find really interesting is the game is positioned, like, we were talking about this with like Destiny and Anthem and Division all came out at some point this year. Anthem and Division were within a few weeks of each other.
Yep.
And then Destiny was dropping content and Division was dropping content.
They
and
were
doing all this stuff.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Borderlands is over here being like, cool, we'll have fun in like February. We'll see you down in like what, I said
in Boston, we'll talk about something. Yeah. Well, which is a good idea because there was a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, Google couldn't get any closer with Ubisoft unless they became like Siamese twins.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they were tied at the hip for their announcement of Stadia, which we were talking about, right? That was some interesting information coming out of there. I don't think that Google's really flushed that thing out. I think that in theory it makes sense to them because it definitely supports like them competing with Twitch on YouTube. And it drives content into there and gets people a reason to play a platform that they own, they manage, they pipe into YouTube that consumers would see as a benefit because they don't have to go out and buy a new graphics card every year kind of thing, or all that, right?
Absolutely.
And there is, I'm going to be the first one to, I'm not the first one to say this, but I mean, there are people out there that just don't have the funds to go do that and get a good gaming PC or a new console, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's not the first time somebody says that. So obviously, you're going to have people that find that as a benefit, and they're going to have a little bit of a jump on Amazon and Twitch and everybody else if they can get to it first.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think I walked away from that thinking that this is a set of streaming tools.
Yep.
And we're using games as kind of what I guess I want to say the front end of that.
Yeah, I would say that's the way I was looking at it.
And initially, sort of, this had kind of been rumored for a while out of corners of the internet. Everybody's going to be like, was there a box? Is there a controller?
Yeah.
Is it your... And there was kind of, and I think ultimately what I walked away from most was I don't think the service is meant to be this, like, PlayStation 5 replacement out the gate, right? And
I don't think so.
And I think that's where, when it was covered in the media and you see Google gets into games, that there were sort of some kind of... People had sort of worked up in their mind what it was going to look like, even before they showed it off, right? So when they showed off something that was a little different and didn't have a console and looks to be probably on the less expensive side, to your point of don't need to go buy a rig, it works on the monitor you have, with the phone you've already got, right?
I would really like to see, if they do want to make a run at it, I'd like to see them pull one where you get the controller and you get a Google Chromecast for your TV.
That's what you said off
for
camera,
like $50.
Right, yeah.
I think if they did that, that really becomes, because, Steam alone has, well, they don't make the Steam Link anymore, but when they did, it was like $50.
Right.
Didn't include a controller, but you could use different controllers with it, and, if you had an Xbox controller, you might be able to use it with it and so forth. So I would have to think like Google with their resources and their abilities could make something for under $50, right at that $50 mark, and you're going to get people that can then afford it, but don't charge for a service because Google's going to make so many bazillions of dollars off of the data they're going to collect as well as the YouTube ads.
Well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point. That was the sort of the number one question I think I was asked, just sort of in passing as people were kind of talking with us about it, was
like, what's the cost?
What are the games and how much does it cost? Because that was not really discussed. They've got a team that looks to be, I mean, to your point about Ubisoft, they kind of sniped an Ubisoft executive to kind of run like an in-house Google first-party games team, but that looked even maybe earlier in concept than I would have guessed.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. I think they got to flesh it out. I think that for developers' sake, don't make it an Apple iTunes store and like just drive everything to the cheapest possible price, right? Because you won't get content there. You won't. I mean, people will sniff that out. And I'm sure developers have already kind of like looked at like, oh, what do you expect us to do with our game on your platform? Is it going to be like the cheapest, or is it going to be like a subscription? I think they're going to want different models.
There's an interesting thing of how do they deal with quality control and don't turn it into like, Flappy Bird's is a hit. Guess what? There's 12 Flappy Bird clones coming tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and you get your influx of like just shovelware.
Right.
Right. That's what Steam's gone through, and they've been trying to quench that for a while. Is like just don't bring every mobile phone game that'll like basically can be ported to PC. Don't do that.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
You don't want that crap
Right.
Flooding the market, because then people get a little bit upset about that in the end. But I mean, that was a big little announcement. Apple did have one of their announcements. They announced Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Which I've heard that the way it was presented is mobile right now, but I've heard that like it actually could be a competitor to Stadia. Like,
interesting.
There's some rumors going around that there's going to be like PC games available through it.
Okay.
Or just games in general, right? PC games would be a hard thing for Apple to sell because they're a Mac system, but if you can take any game and just run it in a browser on a phone or on a Mac, what the hell does it matter then really at that point? It kind of clears out any problem they've ever had in life with like Mac game versus PC gaming.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
I guess the one thing I wanted to see that I didn't out of their event was I thought this would have been an opportunity for Apple to show a game controller off, because I just think that you get to a certain point with phone games where, and we were just checking out Blades earlier today, looks phenomenal. There's certain games that I need to have like a couple thumbsticks, I need a couple triggers, I need some actual physical buttons on this.
Yep.
So I'll be curious how they sort of shoehorned that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's that's a perfect example. Is that Blades game? It's touchscreen. If nobody knows what it is, or if somebody out there that's watching this doesn't know, it's Bethesda Studios, Game Studios stab at taking Elder Scrolls to a playable relative to Oblivion or Skyrim or any of those, right? It's not taking it into like a card game, because they already have Elder Scrolls Legends,
right?
And they've already got like Fallout Shelter for that. But it's actually taking a game that looks similar to all their other games and putting it onto a phone. And I know that just having early access to it, they just put it out. You should be able to go to either the Google Store or the Apple iTunes Store and be able to pull down the game. But then you have to sign up for the beta to be able to get in to play the game, because it is an online connected game. It seems like it's got their checks around it, so you just can't get the APK or whatever and drop it on and play.
Right.
But it does look kind of like a traditional Skyrim or Oblivion game. I thought it was pretty good, and we've been playing around with it here just for a few minutes because it's been tough to get in. But like, I know you're not supposed to show it. That's what it looks like. So I mean, it looks like an Elder Scrolls game.
Sure. Yeah.
And it'll be cool.
To me,
so having a controller, to your point, for a tablet or to an ITV makes sense.
I feel like there's gonna come a point in time, and I bring this up now because we're just talking about Google's now got an official controller,
right? And
I feel like now is the time that it's a good opportunity for Apple to bring on games where it's going to be, especially if this is going to be like a very premium service with very high quality games. I think we're going to need to get into some of these games might need to have a controller.
Oh, I believe to really get like people on board with it.
Right.
Let's say this. If you're bringing things other than traditional mobile games that are more built for touch, and you have an idea you want to attract people that don't necessarily play a lot of mobile games, then you're going to want to have a controller.
Yep.
And they do. I mean, it's not them that builds it, but it's that Steel. Is it Steel Series or Steel, the company that makes the controllers for them? I have one.
For who?
There's one for Apple.
Oh, I meant
it's a third party product.
I meant this is like you walk into Apple store and you
buy a physical controller that they make and they support and all that.
How it clips into your phone, or your phone works around it, or whatever. Right?
Yeah. So I'd like to see that. I think that'd be fun. I don't mind these. I just have a problem with the idea that streaming is the only solution to move forward with. There's going to be a lot of solutions, and the internet and everybody else that gets their pitchforks and their torches. We all need to take a look at everything, but have obviously a critical eye out there. But you're going to have streaming. It's going to be coupled with downloadables. It's going to be coupled with physical media maybe for a period of time, or there's still the limited run guys out there. I mean, there's a lot of things that gaming comes on, and games are awesome either way. And I don't think that you really need to, it's not like you need to marry anything. Mm-hmm. You're not married to physical media or digital media or streaming, so just play the field. Let's say that, like the old men say. If there's good games on the platform, people will go play them. That's my ultimate.
Exactly.
If you get the right stuff, right? I agree.
Right, and that's in any time, and that's not whether Apple's doing it or that's whether Epic's doing it or we're doing it or whoever it is, right?
Apple did say they were the first ones out of the gate saying you will be able to download our stuff. So they do believe in streaming is good, but you still may not have a good connection where you're at. Or the other flip of the coin with mobile, carriers may not want this, right? Like this bandwidth taking up their new 5G network.
Yeah.
Which they say can handle anything. But, knowing and being part of the mobile world that we did for so long.
Right.
They don't necessarily like people taking up a lot of bandwidth, so they're going to probably be like, yeah, we don't know about the streaming thing, but they can sure download it on Wi-Fi at their house for, that's going to be a nice.
Right.
So there's always that other factor. ISPs, you've made a good point of this. If you've only got a terabit of bandwidth,
right,
and you're trying to do 4K, 60 FPS, HDR content,
which is what they say, 7 to 10 gigs an hour.
Yeah, I mean it's going to add up quick if you're a video game enthusiast. Let's say that to the very least.
And that's why I don't look at this and be like they're coming for my machine or whatever, because it's not that they might aspire to that in the future.
Yep.
And sometime down the road, certainly, but we got to get developers on board. We got to get people using this, kind of proving it. And that's kind of how I've really, before that event, in my mind, I was like, okay, Google's gonna take some swings at games.
Sure.
And I'm now more in the camp of Google's taking a really big swing at YouTube gaming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that.
And that's not to say that games aren't a part of that, but again,
I think they failed at YouTube gaming as a thing for YouTube. Mm-hmm. I think they know they have to be there. I think they're just trying to find the appropriate way to provide value to the end consumer and provide value to the developers and publishers at the same time providing value to themselves.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to find that medium. But yeah, I mean, outside of those types of new platforms and thoughts, I mean, we had a couple games like Borderlands 3 announced. You had the Nintendo actually just olaying their prize Zelda content over to a indie developer.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
I wouldn't have, and I guess now that I think about it, and the more I think about it, I'm like, you know what? Good on them for doing this, because for the longest time, they wouldn't allow for this, or even when they would hand parts of Bandai helped on Smash or whatever.
Yep.
You don't really know that the game is functionally it's still a Nintendo game, and just
all the IP is theirs.
Right. This is we have handed Zelda over to the Crypt of the Necrodancer guys.
Which is kind of a cool
to make this kind of this hybrid. It's still a Necrodancer game, but it's also still a Zelda game.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this rhythm game, So
I think it's got some good legs on it. Obviously, Crypt of the Necrodancer was an amazing game. I think a lot of people really appreciated that game when it came out 4 or 5 years ago. Whatever it was. I think that there can be problems with this, and you can have a mixed result.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to acceptance of a new idea for an old character. Look at Star Fox Adventures, right? Star Fox Adventures was not Star Fox Adventures. It was supposed to be Dinosaur something from, yeah, exactly, from Rare. And Miyamoto jumped out there and said, hey, you know what would go well with this? Star Fox. Let's take him, throw him into this. So it became like a Zelda-type game, adventure game, with a character and some like crude, not crudely, but like some flying components, like space battle, like just jammed into the middle of it. And although it's not a horrible game by far, you know, it didn't have legs and people didn't get around it and kind of like build support, and it just kind of fell to the wayside, and it only stayed on GameCube. And it's never been seen again.
And I think with this one, I think this was probably a little bit more measured because they knew that the game that they were kind of talking about making, they weren't trying to make a competitor to Zelda itself, right? So when they did that Star Fox game, and it was sort of like, oh, wow, this is a lot like some of the other stuff that's on this platform right now.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I feel like this is lower risk because we're not trying to reinvent Zelda. We're trying to do something kind of different with it.
True.
So,
which, I mean, it's a good thing to try and do. Let's see, you know, how it ends up. I don't have a problem. I mean, I think the developer's great that does that. So I think as long as Nintendo doesn't like have the hands around the throat the whole time, that they'll be able to make something pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty interested in that. But talking about like games that we have been playing, you know, not Zelda's, but like onto that, Sekiro, we've both sunk some decent time.
I'd have liked to have played more than I have.
I think anybody
but
would,
yeah, we've been a little bit busy.
I think you've got probably about the same I have, about 20 hours, maybe a little bit more.
I got, let's see, the night I played all day Sunday, and then I've really only played one night since then. So I'm probably only. I just got to a boss you were at a couple days ago. So I think you're a couple bosses.
I mean, I grinded away a lot on Saturday and Sunday and really enjoyed, you know, what was kind of being fed to me through the game. And you know, I have to say, just for the first 20 hours that I've had, it's definitely on par with Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 in terms of like, I think it might be a better game than those.
I am of a similar opinion. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this one. I love how they forced you to change. You didn't just get to rely on 4 games worth of skill, and I think that makes this especially fun.
Yep.
And we were talking about this off camera that I'd have been cool with like Ninja Souls. You know what I also been really cool with? Something new from them. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that they didn't want, after making the Demon Souls to Dark Souls to Bloodborne to Dark Souls transitions, right, through the 5 games roughly that they have there, I think that obviously they wanted to do something different, but I don't think they wanted to go away from their core competency. I think what they wanted to do was do a new IP. Mm-hmm. Sekiro fits the bill there and does things differently enough so that, you know, a lot of people have kind of said, hey, I don't know if I like this, but then they spend time with it. I've heard mixed. I've heard probably about 50-50 from people that have played and streamed games for a long time. And half were saying, yeah, you know, we like it. Half were saying, no, the mechanics are too different. The half that said no, ultimately I think have come around and said, yeah, you know, I figured it out. I'm not playing it like I played Dark Souls. And you'd mentioned this.
Oh, yeah.
That you just don't go in. I mean, you can still go and you know, whack the as much as you can and die. Right? And you can try to brute force your way through the boss. But there's definitely strategy abound in this, in the way that you utilize all the skills, all of the, you know, fighting arts that you pick up and everything like that. So combat arts. I think that they've done a great job with it. Yeah. I think that I would imagine not even 15% through.
Oh,
or that's about the best that I can gauge. That's about as far.
In my mind, I've beaten one legitimate boss.
Yeah.
the drunk guy. Everything else from
Yes.
there, I guess
Yeah.
I kind of felt like
The drunkard, I forget what his first name was in it, but yeah, he was the first legit. Actually,
I don't know because
I could say that the boss after him is the first legit boss.
Because like there's a bunch of the generals before and the ogres where you can
Yeah.
get like the beads and the seeds.
Yeah.
And they're like kind of appetizers to the boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, anytime that, and maybe this is just the way Sekiro's handling it, but anytime there's more than just the boss fighting, I look at that as like that's a mid-boss, right? Like there's ads that are kind of around him, or there's the other fighters and that around him.
Sure.
That tells me like,
Okay.
okay, that's not a true like boss
Okay.
battle kind of thing. It's towards that, and the ogre is one, and then the drunkard guy. We don't want to go too far into it, but we're not giving away like tons of spoilers here. These are things that are easily on the internet, but
Yeah.
there is like a traditional boss. Two that I've ran into, neither one I've been able to beat yet, and you met one of them.
Yeah, dude, forget the other guy. We're not going back there for a little
Yeah,
bit.
no,
So
yeah. So I think they've done the right thing, and I hope that the people that are saying like this is not a game that should be this difficult, I hope they understand like you've just got to plug more time into it to enjoy it. It's going to the payoff in the end is by far
oh yeah.
what makes the journey that difficult, the ultimate goal. And this is coming from, I mean, I played probably in comparison to most streamers and that stuff, very little, but
Sure.
I've sunk
Yeah.
150 hours, 200 hours into each Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Dark Souls 2, at least.
I still think
Each.
I
right?
still think it makes it more fun that they kind of turned the game on its side and really
Yeah.
got it into this like high intensity, high parry combat. And I would have been totally fine if this was basically Dark Souls 3 in Japan. I'd have been fine with that. That'd have been cool
Yeah,
with me.
you'd been able
right?
to walk away.
And I'd have been like, cool, we're going to level, we'll get online, we'll have some fun.
Yep.
I like it more that it's not.
Yeah,
For
I agree
certain.
with that. I agree
Yeah.
with it. Yeah.
And there's a sense of when you're sitting there and you're like beating your head and learning the pattern. Once you get that boss,
Yeah. Then you feel like you've actually done something.
now I'm going to go find another dude that will whip me even harder.
Right.
Great.
For a period
Awesome.
of time.
Cool.
Right, until you figure that out.
So
Well-
kind of a lot of news on that front.
Yeah,
It's
there was a
kind
ton
been
of news.
Kind of been a busy week. You want to look at a couple of games?
I do.
here?
Let's
Those-
open with something for opening day.
Okay.
We were talking about this. Was it a coincidence? He said, no, it's not. Well, Brooks is the bigger baseball fan here, but I don't know. Did you ever play Baseball Stars
I've played this
in the
before.
arcade?
I've played this before,
Yeah.
not in the arcade though.
I played it in the arcade, but it was always those. I can't remember. I think this was one of those ones where obviously the arcade owner would get the cart and drop it in and like change the marquee, and it would have maybe 4 or 5 different,
Right.
or 2 or 4 different SNK games, and that's where I'd play it. I didn't always find it, but I always liked it. They're fun games. They're reminiscent of RBI baseball, but just a little bit more graphically enhanced.
To me, this is what Nintendo stole when they made Ken Griffey Jr. for
Yeah.
Super Nintendo. The
That's
characters are like they're larger than life. They've got the big ripped muscles.
Yeah, they're huge. Well, and obviously for arcades, the Neo Geo could handle this right at the time,
Yeah.
and because it was basically an arcade machine that you would get at your house. But your characters highly defined. I mean, that's a lot more than most of the systems could do at home.
Oh yeah.
So a little bit better graphics, but yeah, still kind of in the same exact vein of like Ken Griffey Jr.'s baseball, for sure. And it looks good, it plays well. It does support controller, it does support widescreen. So, the version that we have, it is, and I'll throw the link into chat, it's the same version that you would find on Steam, because we actually, with this one, we are doing the Steam key. So you buy the Steam key,
Yep.
and then you'd go over and redeem it on Steam. And of course, you get a discount through WildTangent like you would on other platforms that sell Steam keys. But let's grab that. I think oh no, we opened up with this one. Yeah, we're fine. I was thinking we skipped over one. But I changed the, right before we went live, we changed the order. So this is the link. You can go over and check it out there. We'll have the 30, I did about 15, 20 minutes of footage for this. So that'll be up on the page so people can check it out, take a look at it. And, the game, like I said, plays very well. Super fun game. Just something to sit down with. It's baseball season. It just started today, opening days today. So this is your selection that we decided that we'd throw in there to kind of let everybody know, hey, the season started. The next game, which is the one I thought we were first going to do, because I forgot we changed it, is Tropico 5. So Tropico 5, I'm a big fan of city builders, and this is kind of funny. I was telling Brooks, like, in your 20s and 30s, you're like, I want to play the sniper rifle guy.
Sure,
I want to play the assault guy. I'm on the
battlefield.
My reflexes are a little bit better these days, right? As in your 20s, 30s, and obviously when you're in your teens. When you get to be in your 40s, you're like, I want to be the general.
Right.
I want to run the war. I don't want to be out there fighting. So in these types of games, these are strategy city builder games. Obviously, Tropico is the same as, Frostpunk is the same as, what's Paradox? We're talking about like city skylines or something of that nature.
Right.
You're building a city. You've got like scenarios that you're dealing with, whether it's like the world's ending and you're in a snowpocalypse, or you're in a tropical country with Cuban dictators.
Well, isn't that kind of the hook? Is that
You're trying to be a dictator.
You're trying to be a dictator,
but you're working for the dictators when you first start.
Right.
Right. So, as in Tropico 5 here, you start out, you get a little like island town. I wouldn't even call it a town. It's more or less like you've got like a plantation, you've got a port, and you've got some buildings, right, to probably keep things from getting poured and rained on, and maybe a restaurant. That's really what you end up getting when you start. But then, you pick your island, you do all that stuff. You go in and you can start building up more plantations. So you'll get like orders for more cocoa, or you'll get more orders for sugar or whatever. So you've got to change your crops. You've got to get your port set up. Then you start getting the smugglers coming to you to say, hey, I'll get this over to here. Don't tell your boss. And then you kind of start running your own thing, and you're putting money in Swiss bank accounts.
And then doesn't that you sort of start climbing like a technical revolution, industrial revolution, where you start off kind of small,
of course,
and you work your way through. Don't you start in 19th century? Ouch, got my tongue again.
No, you don't start in the 19th century. No. You really start kind of in the.
You just need some planks, a few nails.
Well, I guess the 19th century, like 30s.
Because you climb through, it's like Depression,
20s, 30s,
then you go through the wars.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's the 19th century, right? Or is that the 1800s? I don't know. I never really remembered how that went. I thought the 20th century was like the 1900s for some damn reason, because somebody wants to make it difficult.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I mean, in that kind of idea, you go through, you set it up, and you really start with like bare minimum stuff. You've got a steam... the ship that comes in, you can kind of see as a kind of the traditional, like it's got wheels that spin around, so it's like throwing water. It doesn't have like a motor.
Right.
Right? It runs off steam. But you are in a, kind of like a, see, the guy's got a suit on, so I got to take they've made at least some movement into the 1900s. Right?
Source that has to be managed properly.
It's got its own flavor to it. Again, it's a city builder. And you just get different scenarios that you've got to build through.
And then you can also play multiplayer as well.
Yes.
Which I don't think I've done.
I've never done that on a strategy game. Yeah, I mean, a city builder, I've never done that, but I guess it would be fun. I mean, I know in some cases, they made The Sims, wasn't it multiplayer, or you could go online, Sims Online or something like that. So a lot of people have liked that. So I have no problem with it, but it's just different, obviously to what you actually are used to in a single player experience.
Sure, right.
And I like the single player experience. In this, I was having a good time sitting there, kind of building it out, getting plantations set up. Obviously, they're giving you scenarios where, like, hey, our dictator's got some trouble going on. He's got to pay off some people with some sugar.
Right.
If you can do that quickly, you'll get your choice of one of these rewards. And it could be like $5,000 towards your economy, $5,000 towards your Swedish bank account, or your Switzerland bank account, $5,000 to whatever, or 2 or 3 extra smugglers or something like that.
So I know that there's competitive multiplayer. Have you ever played co-op? Or have you
No.
Okay.
Nope, never played. I really don't see these games benefiting too much from multiplayer,
Sure.
but I'm sure that they do. It's just, for me, I like playing them in a single player scenario. But
Well, you gotta, your city, kind of build it and play it in your speed.
yeah,
Not like, oh, I gotta rush home because the guys are sitting there, they've been playing for 3 hours.
yeah,
Right.
no, there's times for that, but this was not one of them. But yeah, no, Tropico 5, definitely it's got very larger than life characters that you're dealing with, and they're funny, and they've got good dialogue that they throw into there. Now, there is no dialogue in the game, but
Well,
there's a little bit of dialogue.
It's supposed to kind of rib at the world's dictators as
Yeah.
well, right? It's supposed to kind of be...
Essentially, yeah, they make a little bit of fun of the Che Guevaras of the world.
Right.
Castros and things like that. But it's done well. So, from tropical weather, now we go a little bit off to the other side where we go into the ground, into dungeons.
Okay.
And this is Dungeons 2. Let's bring up Dungeons 2. We just got Dungeons 2 onto the service. And this one comes from Calypso as well.
Yep.
But it's done in I kind of think of it as more of a strategy. Real-time strategy game. It's got its own flavor. There's this game I like to play, and I've talked about it for years, which is Overlord, where you control these minions and you send the minions out to do things. This game, similar type of control. You've got your isometric viewpoint. You have to start now. Here in the beginning, what you're looking at is kind of the tutorial, and it's like, here's how to move your character that you're controlling. Here's what to do. Here's what to go after. Here's where you got to destroy something to move forward, so forth. As you go into the second part of the actual gameplay, you're now in this world of you're in your lair, and you're building out pathways through the dungeons, and you're going through and sending certain resources or certain units out to do one thing where they're opening up rooms to be able to put treasure into. You're sending out other units to go out and they actually do the building or the maintenance, or they run the thing that's in there that you've set up with your one unit. So you've got that kind of unit control. So strategy game, real-time RTS kind of thing.
Right.
And it's over the top, right? It's got some funny stuff to it.
So is there still... I apologize, I haven't played this one. So do you have heroes in the game?
No, you're just playing as the evil overlord.
Got it. Okay, you're just kind of managing all the minions.
Yes,
Got
yeah.
it.
You kind of set it up. You've got your trolls or ogres or whatever they are, and they go out and they kind of dig your areas and they go mine the gold and they open up other areas. But then you've got your battle units. You've got your units that go in and do the heavy lifting to kind of keep everything running. So you've got basically a game that would satisfy pretty much any RTS player.
So part of the game is managing the dungeon part, and then part of it's sort of the real-time strategy
Yes,
part?
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so you're battling too. Here, right there, you're being attacked by the King's Guards. But they're not really a problem for him, but when you get your minions involved and they're having to fight bugs and that in the dungeons, they're getting killed, so you have to keep backfilling. Sometimes you have to get rid of some of them, and get new units out there that are different, and that's how the game progresses through. It's been pretty fun. I actually played. We've got because this one is also. I'll throw the link in chat. This one's also a Steam version. But we have about 30 minutes of footage we're going to put up on the site.
Yep.
For the game page, so you'll be able to see it a little bit further in and more complete. Like the video cuts off here soon, and it jumps to more of the dungeon component that
Right.
you'll actually see. But let me drop this into chat. And we'll drop it on Twitch. The one thing we were talking about, I think we're going to start opening up Twitter as a streaming. I'm going to do some testing tomorrow. I told you about that.
Yep.
Do some testing tomorrow, see how Twitter stream goes. So we're going to test that out. We already do a Facebook one that's on Wednesdays, different audience usually. But we do like the YouTube, we do like Twitch, but we definitely want to make it easy for people to watch. So
Yeah.
I was even thinking about throwing Twitter in there as well.
We did that little experiment last week.
Yeah, last
right?
week
So-
everything worked out really well. So I think we're going to keep doing some experiments, maybe kick these off to 3 or more
Right.
streams a week, depending upon how much time we have, because we've got other jobs in the company, so we're trying to make use of our time the best way possible. So yeah, this is kind of like the end of the tutorial, what we're watching here, and essentially you're getting there, and then it's going to say, you've destroyed the castle, now it's time to go build your lair, and that's where you start the next phase of the gameplay mechanics.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's, for a game that's probably 10 years old,
And then suddenly,
Yeah.
I want to say
people hit the ground.
Dungeons is,
And good had triumphed.
might not be 10.
Lives lived happily ever after,
be-
whilst the defeated forces
let's
of
see,
evil had
there
to
it is.
eke out the remainder of their miserable existence.
No,
under
4
the
years
ground.
old. A little bit over 4 years old. Because there's Dungeons 3 that we just got as well.
Sure.
So, but, obviously it's using a different viewpoint, isometric kind of. So it could be, Halo Wars still looks amazing, right? If you play that game, and that was on the 360,
The first one.
the first one.
Yeah.
And that was probably 2010, so 9 years ago. Or no, even before that, maybe like 2008.
It might have been even before that.
So it might be more than 10 years old. And it looks great. You go out and play it. These games, they age very well in comparison to, Polygon stuff that was made like way back in the day.
I've long thought that I'm of the belief that strategy games age significantly better than some other, like the 3D action shooter does not age well.
Yeah,
necessarily,
you can start to really nitpick, oh man, that thing looks horrible. Or if you remember, what was the one that I want to say, the original PlayStation over the shoulder or kind of behind third person view shooter, where it was a competitor to basically what its competitor.
Like Siphon Filter?
Siphon Filter.
Got it.
And that one, you look at it today, you're like, wow, that really looks tough. It would not be fun to play. Well, it's fun to play, but more for the reminiscence, more for remembering what it was to first play through it than the actual thing of looking good.
With strategy stuff, the games usually present you with scenarios in front that you've got to, through some combination of
Yeah, and here's
mental and how you deal with troops and resources.
Yep.
Some of those other games that don't age as well, they frequently will add these quality of life improvements that are like, oof, got that, we got through that era,
Yep.
or whatever, right? And then when you go back and you don't have some of that stuff, you're just like, ooh, okay.
Yep.
I remember why I thought 2 was better than 1.
Exactly. Funny enough, here this is now you're seeing the dungeon component. He's actually building out his lair. You've got your pit of retirement in the center where you can just
Nice.
drop them in there. They get destroyed, and then you can build new units. But you can also adjust these treasure rooms. Obviously, treasure gives him more ability to move and do things. Very similar to Jeff Bezos, right? You can go build rockets or Elon Musk. And then you kind of work your way out of the dungeon, and there's enemies that are there, and you're having to build different resource supports for your community underneath the ground, things like that. So it's got a different feel to it. It's done well. I don't know what I was trying to do here. Probably see if like the actual. Oh no, I was saving the game.
I get what you're saying about the Overlord piece.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
It reminds me of Overlord.
Most definitely.
Although Overlord was a third-person perspective, like send the minion. It was almost Pikmin, really, is what Overlord was.
Sure.
You know, a little bit more colorful Pikmin kind of game. Not colorful in that, but like colorful in like humor and things like that. I think we should probably jump off of here and jump to something that you still go into a dungeon.
Yeah, I think we're going to look at Mana Spark next.
Yep. Let's jump over and take a look at Mana Spark. Mana Spark is a roguelike.
You will die.
It will die a lot, and I was surprised at how much I died in this. Just from the beginning, when you start out in the game, you have no idea what's going on. You're like, I'm not really sure. This guy tells you a little bit, but basically you just head to the hole in the ground and you do that.
Yep.
Right? Head towards the hole in the ground. Then you start like taking on your enemies. So you got a couple enemies that you start fighting, and obviously this is more in the realm of like difficulty, right? Of blood, of like Dark Souls or something of that nature.
This is intentionally challenging.
It's intentionally challenging. So you kind of get into Mana Spark. You go in. You got like a pig here, a boar. You know, not too bad. Your weapon of choice is not what I would choose.
Sure.
That arrow and that bow is a little bit difficult to manipulate at speed, right? When you've got enemies kind of coming at you, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So you're more mobile in Mana Spark, and you've got to be mobile. You've got to be able to move around quickly, get out of the way, get to an area where you can shoot, and then back up while you're still taking them down. Enemies will slow down, right? If they take an arrow, they don't like charge at you at 10% more faster. They're like significantly slower. They know like they're in pain. Like this guy, you can tell by his body, but he can rush. So once you die, that's it. You start back over. And it's basically just see how far you can get. So very much in the vein of Dead Cells or any other like Spelunky or anything like that, right? You're just trying to get a little bit further.
It's death does not necessarily. I don't want to say it. It's not 100% bad because
you learn,
and that's kind of that's the whole point of that gameplay loop.
Like right there, I mean, I learned like, okay, this guy, he swings a bigger axe than all the other guys that just try to bite.
Yep.
So, you know, the cool thing about it, I thought this was neat. So I'm going to put this behind us. I thought this was pretty innovative by the developer. They made it to where you can generate a GIF of your death
in game,
and then you can just drop it on your Twitter or wherever.
That's sick.
I thought that was a pretty damn neat idea. I thought it doesn't add. I mean, obviously they do that, so you're sharing it on your YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and you're getting like more views for them or more attention.
It's self-deprecating, right? It's like, here, come look at me die endlessly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, and you've got a way to do it like right away. You can then tweet it out right from in the game.
That's cool.
And you know your GIF's made. So I thought that was a really cool idea, and it saves a hard version to your hard drive.
Right.
So you got your copy of it. So then it just, if you choose not to do that, you can just jump right back in. But it's got enough challenge. I started to get, by the second or third, time into the dungeon or the underworld, I started to get a little bit more savvy of like, okay, here's how I'm going to handle this. Got a little bit further, and I got to a point where I could save.
Okay.
So there are checkpoints as you get further into it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it didn't take too long. Like I said, it's randomly generated.
Yeah.
So every dungeon you go into, it's going to be different. The experience is never the same. Obviously, you get similar enemies at some points, and you might overlap. And like, I've seen stage with 3 spiders coming right at me. So, but the challenge is always going to be a little bit different.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm going to drop it in the chat as well.
You really shouldn't get to a spot where you're like, oh, this is a repeat of things I've already done. It's supposed to be a little bit different each time.
The good news on this game, we have both versions. So we have Mana Spark for WildTangent's DRM, and we have the Steam version. So if you want to try the game out, click the first link for Mana Spark, because you can play it on our service for 30 minutes.
Right.
And if you like it, you can buy it and just go on and play the game. If you want it on Steam, choose the second link I'm going to drop in, and then you'll be able to redeem the key on Steam, but get a discount off of it. So let me grab those. I've got to now find the Steam version here real fast. There it is. But yeah, the first, and this game comes from Behemoth, and not Behemoth, Behemoth, and I believe it's Kishimoto Studios.
I think so.
Or the other developers on this, so they did a good job. So this is the Steam version going into both chats. There we go. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting game, and you get like your old Zelda map, right, where it's drawing out like where you've been, kind of up in the right hand corner. You're collecting some treasure and things like this that you can buy upgrades for when you go to the next save spot. I think that's going to come up here in a minute. I think at the end of the video I did make it. Either way, we'll have the video on the game page as well, so you can see a little bit more of the gameplay, and as you get into it further. Yeah, I think so. This is a second level. I want to say this is where I got to the save point, but you get to that on the third level, I think, is where you can save.
Okay.
And then at that point, you can do some upgrading and some healing and stuff like that. Nope, I didn't make it on this one. Yeah. They can be a little bit brutal. The animals definitely take a bite out of crime.
Yep.
You know, kind of thing. Let's jump off at this one. We'll end kind of our previews or discussion of games with Snake Pass.
Yeah, you picked something kind of different.
I did. And I thought Snake Pass was kind of funny. Snake Pass is a little bit of Banjo-Kazooie and a little bit of like puzzle, staged puzzles, staged puzzles.
It oozes some of that Banjo-Yuka style,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the snake and the hummingbird are friends.
Right.
And the interesting thing about this is your mechanic for moving around the world, you have to move like a snake. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily get that, right? I got like, okay, you cling on to stuff and you work your way up through like tree branches or bamboo forest or bamboo like structures. Understood that, but I did learn a couple things. Like the snake, if he's just moving in a straight line, is going pretty slow. But if you start going like this while, you know, making the snake move, you go faster.
You can like slither quickly
You
or whatever.
slither quicker.
Huh.
And also in water, the same thing. The snake can fly through water if he's slithering. That's how a snake would move in water. They don't just try to like, they'd sink if they were trying to go straight.
I guess that makes sense though, right? I guess I've never really thought about snake speed movement like that before, but
this game has snake physics all through it. And you have to figure out how to use those physics as you go through the game. And you do have like the collection, right? So right now we're collecting, I don't know what they are, like they look like magic bubbles to me. But that's what the snake collects. And then he collects 3 icons to open up the portal to transport off to the next stage. And there's 5 gold coins per level. So they're all challenges of how you get there.
Can you explain, because when you're watching this on the stream, you can kind of see that it looks like moving the snake. Can you explain how you are moving him right now?
Yeah,
so, how it works?
Well, the left stick is just moving him in the direction you point the left stick.
Okay.
Now the rest of his body follows that same path.
Okay.
Right? There is when you press the A button, you can lift his head up.
Okay.
Or, like I was doing there to get up that step, you could just wrap yourself around and you would go up because you're on top of your body. Right? Or you can just use the A. It's up to you on how you want to do certain things. But there's also a component, so you're pressing A to get his head up so he can go up over things. There's also a component of where if you need him to grip onto something, you hold the L trigger. Okay. And he'll like grip onto like the bamboo or something so he doesn't slide off or fall off or whatever. Or he gets a tighter coil around it.
Right.
So it's got some really unique movement mechanics to it.
Yeah.
And it does feel like you're controlling a snake.
Who's named Noodle.
Noodle. Yep.
Noodle the snake.
Yep. And here he goes. You know, we're kind of getting to an area. This is right in the first beginning. Oh, it jumped over. So, in the beginning, like they kind of give you something that's off over an edge.
Okay.
And you've got to figure out how to coil around it
Right.
to hold yourself there so you don't do one of these where you plummet off the end of the earth. So Noodle doesn't like that. You've got to keep him going. But he'll go back to the last checkpoint you had. Each area, as far as I could see, has maybe 1 to 2.
Okay.
I think as you get further into the game, you might even have more. And they get a...
So do you liken this closer to a platformer or a puzzler?
It's more of a puzzler.
A puzzler, okay.
Yes. To get the most out of it, you have to treat it like the puzzle that it is. But it's definitely a platformer. I mean, you can challenge you're dealing with the physics of a snake, so you can do a lot of different things to get through the area. You don't have to follow just one path.
Sure.
And you forget sometimes to actually like drop your head, and right there he was like looking up when he was jumping off of something. It does keep your brain is constantly thinking like I've got to like grab.
It's not exactly the same, but it kind of reminds me. We were playing Manual Samuel the other day, where you're holding 4 or 5 buttons at once.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Not as complex as Manual Samuel, or not as
unforgiving.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it was definitely unforgiving, but more. Manual Samuel is all about like nuance for every little thing, right?
Right.
You have to like deal with all these. It's micromanagement.
You don't have to.
Where
You don't have to press breathe, Snake.
Right. Snake doesn't care. He breathes just fine. He'll fall. He'll be fine.
Right.
You know, you're just pushing the thumbstick forward to move him forward. You know, it's kind of a neat mechanic, but I liked it. I thought it was really fun. This one, right now, I think we have the Steam. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. We'll get off of Snake Pass and we'll do some Evoland. We're going to play through the history of RPGs.
We're playing through Evoland 2 tonight.
Yeah, well, we'll play as far as...
We're
not playing through the whole thing, because actually, it's Evoland. Funny enough, I'm off camera here, sorry folks, but I'm trying to get the links here. Evoland is a interesting game in the fact of it's the history of RPG development. Mm-hmm. But the original one, so the one we're talking about tonight is Evoland Evolution, sorry, I say it all the time. Evoland Legendary Edition.
Okay.
So it's basically the combination of Evoland 1 and 2.
Right.
Evoland 1 was a very short game. It was pretty short. It was actually only 2.5, 3 hours long at the most.
Okay.
Evoland 2 is about 18 hours long. So they considerably turned it into a game where it was more of an experience prior to that. So let me first drop, we're going to drop Snake Pass into chat. So if you want to check this game out, go over here, check it out. That's our game page for it. It is a Steam key, so when you do purchase it, you're going to get the Steam key, you're going to go over Steam to redeem it. But now let's jump over to Evoland. Let's get it running. Oh, that was Tropico I just clicked on. Sorry, folks. There we go. Let's get Evoland up and running. Have you ever played it?
I've not played Evoland.
Okay, why don't you play it? Get this. So this is Evoland Evolutionary Edition. Legendary Edition. I've said that. I've put it into chat. I put it into tweets as evolutionary. I put it everything.
Yeah.
It's driving me nuts. I can't get it correct. You can play a controller, so if you want to... do we have the controller?
We'll give it a go. Let's see.
It's actually... I would use the keyboard.
Okay.
I wouldn't even worry about it. But why are we not full screen? That's different. Let's try doing it from here. Should play full screen. It was playing full. There we go.
There we go.
I don't know what it was doing there for a minute, but let's jump over to the game. So, yeah, with Evoland, it's a little bit like you're starting off, and you'll laugh, but this is both Evoland 1 and 2 combined. I'd play Evoland 1 first to get everybody an idea. And it is very much like you are at the beginning of how RPGs work.
Well, that's kind of the fun of this game, right?
Yeah,
that's
for
what
sure. It's a history lesson in a way.
There's references to many other games in this, so I've not played it. I am familiar with what they did with this.
So essentially, just use your arrows. There you go. Now you can go directions both ways instead of it was just a platformer. Now you can do basic scrolling. So now you're in the the Legend of Zelda world, the original. Now you get a little bit of sound, which was in Legend of Zelda, sound effects. Now we're getting into more of the Final Fantasy world where it's smoother scrolling. Got your sword. Now you can go ahead and stab and break stuff. And it is, funny enough, I mean, for as much as we're laughing about it's an experience, it is a game that if you die and you haven't saved, you go all the way back. So it's got traditional, like...
That's how games used to work.
Yep. I mean, it's got traditional, like, RPG stuff to it. If you die, you go all the way back. Oh, now you've moved up into color. We're not on the Game Boy anymore. So this was kind of the cool component of it. You got... Oh!
Well,
give it another run. It's a great game. I played it when I used to stream by myself. I played this, I want to say, like years ago. And I wondered if we'd ever end up getting it. We actually had it on our service. We had Evoland 2 for a while before even we took over on the game publisher side and distribution and doing all that stuff.
Where's my sword?
There you go. Get those bushes.
Oh, these enemies couldn't be more out of NES Zelda if they tried.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they took it right from The Legend of Zelda. Oh!
Turning and moving is
We might have to call this Evoland Shadows Die Twice. No, it's a great game. I've always thought it was good. So I'm going to drop the... So we've got Evoland Legendary Edition, and we've got it for Steam. So if you get this, if you buy this, if you go buy the game, you'd get the Steam key. But we do have Evoland 2 by itself, the standalone, on WildTangent service, and you can play it free for 30 minutes and try it out. So I'm going to put both links in there. Although what we're showing is Evoland Legendary Edition, where both 1 and 2 are combined. You can still try 2 on its own for 30 minutes, and you'll get an experience very similar to this. I think they did it a little bit different. Not by much, though. I mean, the game, I think Evoland 1 was really a proof of concept.
Okay.
And Evoland 2 was the game that they were going after. So yeah, now you got like full on like color. Now you're going to get a little bit more, I think, here coming up. Got the back card. So you get another, I think you get another enemy that'll be attacking you. You should be able to save it. Oh, you did save that time.
Yeah, I saved the first time too, though.
Well, I think it wasn't opened up yet. I think so now you're good. So if you die, you'll go back to that point. But I thought this game was really cool because, you know, I was saying, funny enough, I was saying last week we're done with pixel graphics for a while. And then obviously the next game we play is pixel graphics, but
naturally
it's only for a period of time.
Right.
Pixel graphics. The game actually gets in and it looks just like better, you know, RPGs of like PlayStation.
Right.
Kind of funny. So it's got a lot of stuff to it. So let me throw those links into chat while Brooks enjoys his playthrough. Oh, now you got story dialogue.
There you go.
They did a good job. They make it funny. So the first one is going to be the actual game that we're playing, which is the Legendary Edition. And there's that. next link is going to be, like I said, the standalone version of number 2, Evoland 2, and that one you can play on our service for free for 30 minutes, so you can actually get a feel for the game if you like it. Because we're showing number 1 here right now, so hopefully you'll kind of know if you like that. But we're also going to put the video, the live stream. We make all the weekly tangents available on YouTube, so you can just go back and watch the whole thing if you want. Right after the show's over, we pretty much put it live. So there, you've got, what did you just get there?
The sign.
The sign, okay, that gives you direction.
We just got 256 colors.
Yep. Now you got free movement. Now you can go.
Look at that.
They do a good job of it. They made it funny without even having to say anything, because if you played games, right, during the beginning of RPGs, you know exactly like what the pain was, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. But then when you saw like Final Fantasy, you saw Legend of Zelda on the NES, and you were like, this is amazing. And then you played like Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, you're like, holy crap, man, they've really changed this thing. Like, this is the future of gaming. And then you get to like Legend of Zelda on, GameCube. Actually, that's wrong. Legend of Zelda was never on GameCube.
Not in a mainline.
Not in a mainline game. They did have 4 swords, I'll say that. But when you got to like Wii U, you're like, wow, totally different world. Oh, good job. Now you got inventory management. Now you got overworld.
Okay.
And now you got the demise of what Dragon Warrior was. Turn-based gameplay, or overworld encounters. God, that's what killed that game. You know that Nintendo had to give those away?
What?
Dragon Warrior?
No.
They made so many, and the game sold so poorly in the US, that if you were a Nintendo Power player and you signed up for a year or Power, the Nintendo Power magazine, you got the game free.
That's so funny.
And they ended up making like tons of it. And that really they found out like, okay, people do like it. They just had to play the first one free. This was long before you had in-app purchase, right? So they got like those seeded out to the market, and that's why Dragon Warrior is an amazing game today, and there's so many being made.
Right.
Right, even today, up until now. There was just one made last year.
Yeah, like 11?
11, I think it was. So, yeah, that's what actually in the US kicked off Dragon Warrior and made it work. Oh, mode 7. Now we're into... Funny enough, though, this is like... It's not 16-bit, and that's when mode 7 appeared, so I don't know if they got that wrong or not, but maybe they did. We're not going to be picky. The shield guys. You're kind of close there. Ooh. Okay, now try to continue. Let's see where you're at. 5:56, I would guess. Probably about right. Try the second one.
My watch says 14. I think the clock on here might be wrong.
I think it's just talking about like how long you played for.
Oh.
I think. Wow.
All right.
Oh, no, this is right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, this is right where you just walked in. I don't know. I mean, I think the game is, as you get further into it, because you kind of see it, like, if you've played a lot of RPGs, obviously you're going to know kind of what you're looking at as you're doing the upgrade. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a point where you go, like, that's Dragon, that's, oh, God, what's the one on PlayStation I'm thinking of? Wow.
Final Fantasy?
No, not Wild Arms. Not Final. Well, I think both of those have like their own little thing in there. But what's the one that I'm thinking of that Sony did that was there? Dragon.
No.
Legend of Dragoon, or Legend of Dragoon. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
That was the one. Couldn't think of it.
Where am I marching towards right now?
I think you were going the right way. You might have to beat those 4 guys.
No.
Yeah, not very fun. I'm just seeing what our bit rate is here that it's complaining about. What's it saying? I don't know what it's saying. YouTube always gives us errors and like complains about our bit rates and all that stuff for our audio, but I think it's fine. I mean, everything's working on our end. I don't know. And I can see it's working on the screen, so I'm going to take it that everything's fine with the stream. If anybody watching is having a problem, let us know, but I didn't see anybody complaining when they were in chat, so. Yeah, I think you got to take out all 4 of these guys. There you go. Scum save it. You know that's what that is.
I didn't see anything.
Oh, yeah. One of
I
these.
don't know what you're talking about.
Those guys over there. Oh.
Huh?
I guess mouse and keyboard is not like, because it's not really a mouse thing. It's more of like keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Oh shit! I did not mean to start over.
Yeah, you should just be able to bounce out and jump back in on the continue. And the music, I mean, we don't hear it here all that much because of the stream, but
Right.
the music is really good. Oh, I think you got the wrong save.
That was the 14 one.
It's 114. Remember, it's the amount of time you play.
Or sorry.
Yeah. There you go, bottom one. 801.
801.
Yeah, but I mean, in this one, did you get? Yeah, you got it. There you go. The music progressively changes too, so you get chiptune world, you get
Well, that's how.
into the next one, right? And
Right.
full orchestral music eventually.
Upgraded from MIDIs.
Yeah, you get all the benefits of the future. I'd like to see them take more than just RPGs on in this too.
Oh, you could do
Oh,
a funny
beat 'em ups.
You could do a funny action version
Sports,
of this game. Yeah.
like football alone would be a funny one too. I'd like to see them try that, but I know that RPGs probably make the most sense because the drastic change for those, because there were so many like put out all the time from big name companies, and like the upgrades that they did would be recognizable to most people. Like now you're in 16-bit kind of.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
Oh no, this is still.
We talk about it frequently off of camera, right? Where devs made do with what they had. Mm-hmm. And
For sure.
it's funny these days to see, you know, some of these games that have been in development for, we're not even talking 4 years. For some of these games, we're talking 5, 6,
Oh,
7
yeah.
years with the budgets. And then the game launches and you're like, it kind of doesn't work. What?
Yeah, I mean, with an Elder Scrolls game, you're talking about like at least 5 years of development, if not, you know, closer to 10.
Right, yeah.
Right, and those guys, you know, Bethesda, they're not immune to it either. They have their bugs, but they make games that are so large.
Oh,
It's hard to QA the entire thing.
I meant that as just, it's
Yeah, but I
interesting.
mean, that's
to-
a good point.
When you play these games and you look at like, and you see the like, first there was only 8 colors and you could only go up, down, and left, right. It's really funny to see what they did that was interesting with like story and mechanics and combat, because you had to do
Yeah, you had to
with what
deal
you
with
had.
it. You had to deal with it. So you got some NPCs now, and you got a village. Still haven't made that leap to more of the 16-bit graphics, but maybe I forget how they handled it in this.
Got a sword and I'm coming for you. Oh, don't see your children. Cool. Neither do I.
Stab them.
Awesome. Yeah, me and this dude are on the same.
We're all hanging out
me
in
and
the
this
same
dude are on
spot.
the same page.
And our machine went to sleep on us.
She hates children. Oh, dude, everybody in this town hates children.
Yep.
Is this Vegas?
It is Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Nope. You got to grow up. That's what they're telling you.
Nobody is even taking me seriously.
check it.
What is
Check
it?
your inventory. You want potion? Can you grab that? No. Not yet, I guess. It was just flashing up in the corner. I was thinking, oh, okay, that's probably telling us that we need to do something.
Well, it was like grow up, so I'm thinking you got to go pull
Yes.
the sword out of the ground
Exactly.
from Zelda, right?
Yeah, keep looking around. I'm sure that you're on the right path because I played it, but I can't remember exactly what that.
I mean, I've only played so many games where you're a little green dude that pulls a sword out of a stone, and then you warp 7 years into the future and become adult Link, right?
Yes, we won't mention names, but like point fingers.
Let's see.
Is there anything to the left side? Oh, there's a kid there. Maybe he'll tell you. Like, people don't like kids. They don't like children. A growth seed. Down the well. The well was over to the right.
I'm sorry he lost his growth seed. I'm gonna go get it.
Yep, his loss, your gain. I think it's back to the left now.
Is there a map?
Just go straight up. I think you're...
We haven't gotten a map yet?
Nope.
Map's not a thing in games yet. Okay.
Nope. There it is.
Geronimo.
The secret place is open. Dun, 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 dun. It's exactly how it happens. You grow taller. Thankfully, there is the rope still there. What else is Khalifa? No adventurer. Oh, maybe that guy will let you cross the bridge.
They were saying something about the cave, the North Cave.
Oh, you gotta get equipment now. Everybody's wanting something. You know how these towns are, they all got their hand out.
Yeah. This dude presumably want.
He's just saying, hey,
Go rob
man,
someone
we're happy
blind.
you're not a child. Kick that kid in the head. Nope. Just tell him I took your seed. Oh, now you can enter the houses. Oh, now you got an innkeeper.
No. Not
10 gills.
No.
I don't think she knows that inflation hasn't gone up like that. Oh, weaponsmith probably. Shopkeeper. You probably have to buy something, right? Got enough to get that. There you go.
Oh, it just
It just throws it on there, yeah. Yeah, you haven't gotten like self-management of the inventory. Oop. Did we get stuck?
I think we might have gotten stuck.
Oh, there it is. And that mouse. It's weird with some PC games when you don't have you don't need the mouse at all.
And
the
it
mouse
doesn't,
becomes
and it
like
doesn't
a dead
turn
animal.
it off, yeah.
And you're just like, I have no interest in using a mouse. I can't do anything with it. Mode 7. Forced fight. I think that's funny. Oh, awesome. It's the ground moles. They attack my yard like non-stop out where I live. We got, I think if you've watched us long enough, now that we've had 10 episodes, you know, we're going to become basically an ongoing show and be like every other YouTuber and complain about like no ad revenue and everything else.
Yeah.
And we'll probably be on for at least another 1,100 videos that we put up.
At least.
But we've been talking about our snowstorm we had about a month and a half ago or something to that effect. And I got a brunt of it, you got the brunt of it. We got a lot of snow. We all got out of the snow. I had snow for like a whole month over top of my yard.
Where it like didn't melt.
Where it didn't melt.
Still staying cold,
And the whole time that snow was covered, every mole in the entire country made its way to Index, Washington, and dug my yard.
Well, you had the 1 or 2 moles that presumably like got onto Facebook when it came back up after that went down, and it was like, hey, we're going to Greg's house this weekend.
Yeah, everybody come meet us here, and they have destroyed the yard, the entire yard. After the snow melted, we saw it and wished the snow was back. So, I have no love lost for moles.
No.
In games, so I would say attack them as much as possible. Oh, dead ends.
Yeah, it didn't help that she missed, right?
Well, that's in-game assistance from NPCs has never been
Questionable.
at AI. Cobra Zero.
No, there she is again, being like, I helped.
Yep, just like Reddit. Now we're going... You only got one direction. I wonder if it's a cave, or you're getting out the other end, or... Because they always force you to go through, like, a pass. Mm-hmm. Right?
Ooh, 1 damage over there. Don't help too much.
She took your advice. These snakes are a little generous with the amount of gills they drop. Can you not get through that? Wow. I didn't know, like, your legs couldn't step over a rock.
She misses, you can't step over rocks, like I've kicked people out of raids from this grade.
Right, I see.
Oh, as soon as we start threatening raid kicks, we start...
Oh yeah, like she starts doing some work. That's exactly how it works.
Got that box over here.
Yeah, what are you going to unlock this time? That's always the thing about this game, too. It's like, what are you going to unlock? What would be the next thing? Oh, the hidden stars. There are like collectibles, like in, space. What was it? Galaxy Mario. Collect the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was those. I want you to get to a little bit more in the graphic area. I think it's pretty close. It doesn't take too long to get through this. Yep, she's over there dancing. I think you got Claptrap with you. Oh. The life fountains. What was the first RPG that you played? Or adventure game? I mean, because this starts out
first
as
RPG I ever played would have had to have been one of the Final Fantasies on the original NES. And even then, I look at there's the start of my gaming, which I don't really remember, but there were adults that I know that claimed I did things.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I mean, I didn't, so to me, like...
I do that in the office, by the way, too.
Got it, okay.
Claim that you do stuff.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. I'm still here then, right?
It seems like a constant thing you've been doing for you.
But yeah, so it wasn't until really Super Nintendo that I really started, like... When I had a Nintendo, I kind of just got games because we got games.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was like 3, 4, 5, because we had a NES when I was 3, so that makes like...
At that point you really don't remember a ton.
Right, so it was really Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then even once I had a Super Nintendo, we still had like a NES at the house that we would have games or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it would have had to have been one of the early Final Fantasies.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 2 probably.
Yeah, it looked very
Well,
similar.
it was I think it was Final Fantasy 2, but it was actually called Final Fantasy here.
Well, don't even let's not rip that onion apart of which Final Fantasy and where they screwed up the numbers.
Yeah, they did a horrible job with that. The Super Nintendo really set off like for Square and the Final Fantasy series. I mean, it really just screwed everything up in terms of like what was coming here, what was going there.
Well, I mean,
they didn't think that actually, from what I understood, the Japanese developers didn't believe that it would be that interesting to the U.S. market. So they were like, why put the effort in?
To localizing it and bringing it over. That's why only some of them come. But since only some of them come, American number 3, for example, in Japan, number 3, not the same game.
Right. Yeah, totally separate thing.
That's not confusing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it becomes like, why would you have done that to your own development team? But whatever. There's the moles. Something happened somewhere. Oh, you stepped on a key or an unlock component. Yeah, I think you...
So I think there was a set of pillars up here that probably came down.
Probably opened up. Yep. Guardian of the Crystal. This is definitely Final Fantasy right here.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you've got like the magical item that wakes up the Guardian or whatever thing it is. That was always a big... And then the heal, you have to start using more of the stuff, I guess. Oh, the boss animates now? That's funny. I'd probably have to say, like, I started playing on Atari, obviously. I don't remember, like, Adventure was, I guess, as close as you'd get to this. The one that I do remember, probably my favorite was Legend of Zelda on NES. That's where it started. And that's where I really, like, I actually had a Sega Master System. I was the only kid, I think, in Ohio that had a Sega Master System instead of a Nintendo Entertainment System.
Okay.
And this was when you could like return your game systems like months after you had bought them. Like they didn't care. At Hills, I think, was the place on Steubenville, Ohio. And I took that there and told them I didn't want it and returned it. And my parents were kind of cool with it. They were like, yeah, we understand. We bought you this one just because we thought it was cool, but, you know, if you want to trade for the other one. And I got Legend of Zelda, which was a gold cart, so you actually thought it was...
I had the original Zelda with the original gold cart with the original battery that would die in it.
Oh, yeah. I played that all day long for months. Enjoyed that game, beat it many times. But I missed the Sega Master System because I loved playing pro wrestling on there.
Okay.
That was one of my favorites. But yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah, we were a big... For the longest time, we were always a Nintendo household, so we had the Marios and the Zeldas. And it took my folks until PlayStation 2. Before
to transition things over.
Before game systems weren't Nintendos.
Right.
To me, everything was a Nintendo.
Yeah.
A Sega, they're playing Nintendo. They're not playing video games, we're playing Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right? So
I ended up we can probably call it from here. I mean, what'd you think of the game though?
It's funny the way that
it's almost like an experience.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how they've done it. And definitely it gets... The second one is more like a game.
A game.
Yeah,
right.
Traditional. But yeah, it's kind of funny when I got into like Nintendo, obviously, and had that until the... Where'd my mouse go? There it is. Had that until the Sega Genesis came out. Well, no, I had a Super Nintendo. I traded everything that I had for Super Nintendo. I did it again. I hit the wrong screen. Traded everything I had in the NES for Super Nintendo and Populous, which was the worst game to ever get as the base game to have. Now, you thank God you got like Super Mario World packed in. So
when the games came in the box.
yeah, and then I convinced like every girlfriend I continued to date to buy me another game. So that's how I got the games for all these.
Got it. Okay.
And then I would trade them in, the girlfriends.
Yeah, no, I knew what we were talking about.
And then trade the system in to get a different one. And my final girlfriend in high school got me a Genesis and had Eco the Dolphin on there. And loved that game. Played that forever. But that's when I became like, okay, I'm done with Nintendo for that period.
Mm-hmm.
And went to like Genesis and then on to like, what was it, TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
I had an Atari Lynx. Kind of went on from there and just bought everything. But yeah, no, I blame it on them for continuing to feed my habit.
Yeah, I think, we were off camera, we were talking about this. We're not exactly sure when, but I think here in the next maybe few weeks, we're kicking around a show of like some early stuff you played. Like how did we fall into games? How did we end up where we are today, where we do basically nothing but play video games?
Yeah, well, that's what everybody thinks on Facebook. We've got our own folks that we love over on Facebook, and they were convinced that we were just playing games all day long. Which we play a little bit, but it's more or less when we're testing and making sure the games run, so when you buy them or put them on your machine, they don't fail. And it's nothing against developers, just like that's how it works.
Right.
That's our QA process. But Evoland, what else did we talk about? Baseball Stars 2, we did Dungeons 2, we had
some Tropico in there.
I think we're kind of out of the pixelated, like Evoland gets out of the pixelated graphics and into some other stuff. I think the next game we're going to go and do next week, we got Ark in, and I think we're going to maybe do some Ark on the stream. That may make the stream a little bit longer and may make it less that we show off in the games in terms of videos, and that we'll play around with more of a crafting kind of like survival game.
Yep.
So I think we may end up doing that next week. But yeah, to your point, we may end up doing a separate show. And do a separate show where we're just talking about like what we got us into games and things like that.
Yeah, we've been sort of talking about some different ideas off camera.
Yeah, we want to do far more with these, and we love talking about like new games and getting them visible to you on here. But we love talking about like games and just shows and doing like more entertaining stuff on YouTube. So let us know in comments or whatever like you'd want to see. We're happy to start building the show out a little bit more.
We were right on the cusp of 4,000 before we started. So
yeah, we might be at 4,000 now. I haven't looked, but yeah, you guys have been following and giving us a little bit more views in your daily life. So we ended up putting a little bit more effort into the show. We want to do more and make it more of a destination that you can come and find all sorts of games. We are one away. We don't need a pity follow or subscriber. Take it, but we don't need it, but we will take it. And we appreciate everybody that's subscribed so far and comes back and checks out the videos.
Yep.
Sees what we're up to. And we definitely want to do more with the show.
Cool. Look forward to playing some more next week.
Yeah, next week will be fun. We'll be talking probably like what happened at, well, I think we've seen what happens at PAX East. I don't think they'll be doing too much more in terms of announcements.
I think this morning was the reveal that we're going to see there. So I think anything that comes out of PAX East will be maybe on the smaller scale,
probably more
along the lines of
indie.
Here's a cool indie thing that was found.
Yeah, which is always fun. And when we go to PAX here in Seattle, and we go to PAX Dev, we love seeing the indie stuff because they are doing some really cool things, and that's where like an Evoland comes from, is from an indie developer, right? Making something. Shiro Games came up with this, and wanted to get it to market, and they had the ability to through Greenlight, I think is how it first made its way on
Originally,
Steam.
okay.
And I think it was shown at PAX, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was one of the PAX top 10 or 10, but I think it was there. And, we've seen so many cool things there. So these shows, the ones where the indies can get it to the consumers, like PAX, they've done a lot, for getting visibility and interest and all that stuff. And if you like games that you see from indies, the best thing to always do is put it in your wish list.
Right.
You may not buy it, but if you wish list it, that gives them more of an ability to be visible on storefronts.
Yep.
Right, and shows like WildTangent or like Steam or any of the other ones what you're interested in without you having to like take quizzes and all the questionnaires and stuff that we'd want to ask you. You can help just by providing information through that way. So
Yep.
look for those types of features to come around, and definitely use them. They help the developers quite a bit. So I think that's going to be it. You can reach us on Twitter. We'll put those into the links in chat. They're actually on every one of our videos that we archive. They're at the bottom towards like the personal links. You can talk to us directly and tell us what you think, and give us advice on how to play better games, as always, on the show, or what you want to see from it. But like I said, we're going to do some different things as we start to move forward now. Since we've got 10 of these under our belt, we've got pretty much 10 of the other show under our belt. We've got shows that go out and we don't have echoing audio anymore and all sorts of crap. And now we just need to start building on like what we're doing with the content. So everybody have a great weekend.
See everyone next week.
And we'll talk to you next Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday here. Same time, same channel. We will be back. Thanks, folks. Have a great weekend.